This episode of Jack is brought to you by Weaver Leather.
Well, it's been a long time because it's been over 2 months since the day that Jack got hurt, popped up lame after I'd been out here just jogging and loping around. And so took over 6 weeks of just kind of rest. You know, the vet said it was basically something small enough that he couldn't exactly find it, but probably some soft tissue. Maybe he just landed funny out here and kind of twisted something. And so we did a lot of rest, and then when I started again, I started really slow, to the point where now I am not even back to where I was before. So I'm not riding him quite as long or as hard as I was. Not that I was riding him that long or that hard to begin with, but I come out here and I mostly trot around. I'll kind of switch back and forth between one-handed, two-handed, just kind of putting miles on him. The one thing I like about the hot summer heat, now that we've hit July, is that they get a lot more quiet. So the young horses get a lot more of a broke feel when it's hot because they're not nearly as fresh. So we actually do a lot of riding earlier in the morning. The two big changes for Jack that have happened even though we've been doing all this is you might be able to see these itty-bitty tiny little spurs that I have on here, which are just those slip-on little nubby spurs that a lot of people would call them like a little slip-on English spur, but when they're just this little tiny nub, it's something that I usually recommend for people who are just starting out riding because you have to really try to use them. Your leg's not just going to bump into it. When you have a spur that has a 2-3 inch shank on it, that's the part that sticks out away from your foot and holds the rowel, then it's a lot easier to accidentally bump the horse. With these, when I'm doing that with my legs waving right there, the spur's not even bumping him. So I actually just put these little spurs on yesterday for the first time. And basically, he pretty much didn't notice them except for that after I'd been trotting around for 15 minutes, usually when I have to start using the end of my rein to kind of tap on him. Notice his head, he's like, uh-oh, is she gonna tap on me? Then usually I have to start using something like that because he's just like, oh, do we have to? But now I can bump him just a little bit with those instead of the end of the rein. That's one big change that's happened. And the other is you may have noticed that I haven't stopped him and been backing him up much at all. So I just started introducing this week. So if you watch, when I pick up the reins, you can see him kind of look around like she's talking to me, but I don't know what she's going to say. And I'm going to hold pressure on his mouth, and I'm just going to hold that until he takes a step. And that's just kind of a little tiny step there. And then I'm going to release. So he's catching on. So you'll see that if I'm moving forward and I pick up on the reins, he kind of slacks off on moving forward, but he doesn't necessarily immediately. That's a little baby step. Almost could have been swatting at a fly instead of stepping backwards. I'm just going to hold this pressure, and then he takes a little step back, and this is the very beginning of it. So he's just learning what would be considered more of a 2-rein stop. You can see how I can just lock and hold my hands here on the saddle, and then when his feet move, I release, and then I can do it again. And so he's just barely learning it. Sometimes he'll just stand here and ignore the bit for a while. Little bit of a try. And so that's something I'll just start working on. Even though I started riding him in March and this is July, now granted, I lost a whole bunch of time. But as far as the number of hours I'm at, it's about right, meaning that this is about where I would start teaching a 2-rein stop. Up until now, it's just been a 1-rein stop if I needed to. I'm just going to go ahead and ride him around a little. So the next thing Jack's going to start to learn is going to be a little bit of the spiraling out. If you look back over the weeks that I've been riding him, he already learned what I called wandering circles, which was when I was riding him a lot earlier and I was inside, and I would have the outside rein really loose, and I'd just be holding onto the inside rein, and I'd be wandering around in the arena. Now he's already learned that, and then you've seen me ride him around out here, kind of two-handed, or every once in a while dropping down to one hand, and I'm just kind of been loosely guiding him. But now he's starting to get a little more forward motion, a little more understanding. I'm going to start to show him how to do what I call spiral out. And so I'm going to touch on it right here, and you're going to see him not really understand it, or maybe he'll just accidentally make the right choice, and that would be great, because then I can reward him for it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him walking forward here, and to show you, I'm going to lock this inside hand here. So this inside rein is doing nothing but just holding pressure. You can see him kind of spiraling in following that. Now this outside rein, I'm going to pick up on it, and I'm going to pull out on it. Let me get him untangled first. So I'm going to try to do it while I'm coming at the camera so you have a little bit better chance of seeing his reaction. There comes a horse from the back pasture he's looking at. So I'm going to lock this hand here, and now I'm going to pick up on this outside hand, and you can kind of see him not know what to do, plus he's looking at the other horse in the back pasture. But I'm going to lock this hand here, I'm going to pick up on this hand, and I'm going to drive him forward, and I felt the shoulder move just a little bit, and I'm going to release. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pick up here, pull on him, feel that shoulder move, which was actually him just kind of going straight instead of turning. Then I'm going to take my hands off and release everything. Hold this leg, pick up here. You can see his fighting in his face. He doesn't understand what he's supposed to do. What he is supposed to do is he's supposed to keep his head bent to the left, but move his shoulder to the right, towards this right hand that's pulling. But it's going to take him a while to stumble onto that idea. But eventually this will be one of the big breakthroughs that it'll take for him to ever be able to neck rein. Right there, he actually moved his shoulder really good. The reason he did was because he wanted to pull towards the pasture. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to come around here. I'm going to wait, lock the hand here, pick up and pull like that. And there he moved that shoulder real nice because he's trying to go to those horses out in that back pasture. So that's an example of using kind of where he already wants to go, which is out to visit these horses, to kind of get a place where I could reward him for something I wanted. And to me, that's what natural horsemanship is. It's using what you can read into them to help what you want to accomplish. So that's something I'll do. Now, it's going to be a lot more subtle. I won't normally just step out and do it like this with a horse this green, but it's going to be harder for you to see. What I'll do is I'll go out here and I'll be riding him around. And as I'm just riding around, if I come out here and I'm trotting him five or six times around this whole arena, I might be riding one-handed, letting him just kind of stretch his neck, and then I might just pick up, bend, fade him out for just a second, and then go right back to this. So I'm not going to lock in and just fight with him to accomplish it because he's a little baby and he doesn't understand, but I will every once in a while just pick up and play with it. But it's going to be so subtle that it would be difficult for you to see on video. But that subtlety is how he's going to learn it real well and real smooth. That was nice. See if he remembers the backup. One little step. Good job, Jack.
Join us next week for another episode of Jack.